Whew, I'm nervous. Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews and a Q&A. I recently hit 300 subscribers. Thank you so much to all of you who have hit subscribe. If you're new here, welcome. Whatever this is, talk about books with me, yay. I wanted to do something to mark the occasion, and I've been wanting to do a Q&A for a while, since I hit 250, and I thought, well, let's just bite the bullet and do it, and if nobody asks any questions, then that's fine. And I actually got 53 questions. So, imposter syndrome who? I have split these into some categories, and I think I'm just going to go through and answer them in a Q&A fashion. Let's see how we go. I have not written down who asked what question, because some people asked multiples, and it was just, after I sorted them, it was too much. Thank you to everyone who asked questions. If I missed your question, I'm sorry, comment it below and I will answer it in a comment. So my first section is questions that are about me specifically. Question 1, how are you so great? Deal with a witch. It's a good deal. She's very nice. Very reasonable interest rates. It's all fine. Your childhood dream job. So the only dream job I can have remembering when I was like a child was I wanted to be a vet, which very quickly was a dream that died because I realised that a lot of what being a vet is putting down animals, and I didn't fancy doing that. At one point, probably, I must have been about year 9, so about 14, I really wanted to go into musical theatre, I wanted to do drama school, I wanted to do that whole thing, so I aligned my GCSE choices with that, and I am living proof that it really doesn't matter what you pick to do for your GCSEs, because I completely veered off that path very quickly. Never mind. Favourite flower? Any flower I am not allergic to, which is very few things that have pollen in them. I do really enjoy peonies, but because they are somebody else's favourite flower and they always make me think of them, so something about that. If you could get away with it, what crime would you commit? Murder/cannibalism, but specifically of the rich. Eat the rich. Next section is, I think, probably the biggest section. This is questions about me and reading or booktube and that kind of thing, which makes sense that it is the largest section. What are some of the ways that booktube has affected your life? Has it caused you to develop new habits you wouldn't have otherwise? I think, particularly since I started doing weekly reading vlogs, I read a lot more because I have to be accountable for the stuff that I read. So if I say on a Monday in a vlog, I would like to read this book by the end of the week, I have to have a pretty good reason not to have done that. I also think, probably controversially, I think a lot of other people may find a different pattern. I think I haul fewer books, again, because of accountability. When you can hear yourself saying, I added 28 books to my TBR this week, or this month even, you think a bit differently about that kind of consumer culture, and that's not true of everyone who's on booktube, but personally that's what I find, especially now that I'm subtitling my older videos where I'm like, it was a great month, I only hauled 28 books, and I'm just like, how did you achieve that? I think booktube has really helped me understand what I do and don't like about a book, because I have to articulate it more. And before, if I read something from the library or if it was an owned book, I might not necessarily talk about it or review it, whereas now I do that for everything I read. So I'm getting much better at understanding what I do and don't like. New habits. I think that currently in the last 6 months or so, and partly it's because we're not going anywhere or doing anything, but my life has much more of a routine in terms of upload schedule, which I think is really good, and I've really proved that I can stick to that. So vlog on Sundays, video on Mondays, it's been really doable. What are the positives and negatives that come with a growing YouTube channel? Firstly, thank you very much for calling this a growing YouTube channel. It is, but not in like a speedy, you're becoming famous kind of way. This made me happy. This was a nice way of phrasing it. Thank you. I think the positives include community. I've really felt that of late. I think just getting into really watching other people's videos and commenting and being nice to people, that's been really nice. Also getting to share new books. Like, I've had a few comments lately of like, I pre-ordered The Bone Child Daughter because of you, and while it is absolutely terrifying, because what if they hate it and then they hate you by extension? It's really nice to have an influence on people and have people discover books because you like them. It's just a good feeling. Negatives, I find the imposter syndrome really difficult, actually. And I really struggle with comparing myself to other people. I think particularly where other people have started after me and have higher numbers than me, I find that really difficult to disengage with, but it's something I'm trying to do, because what on earth is the point in comparing yourself to people on a platform that promotes things just because it feels like it. What is your greatest reading shame? Brackets, dog-earing pages, lying about having read something, etc. I am unabashedly a page dog era. I can't think of how you phrase that. I dog ear the pages of my books and I'm not ashamed of it. They're my books. I can do what I want with them. Books are not public property unless they're from the library, in which case they are public property. I think my biggest bookish shame is probably that I still have the books from that November book unhaul video in this wardrobe. I have not taken them to the book bank yet. In my defense, they're very heavy. Either that, or if you've watched my TBR video, you will know that I have been completely deceiving myself as to how many books were on my TBR for the last probably year. What book, bracket books, would you consider getting a tattoo inspired by? I am so feeling the tattoo itch again. I have 2 tattoos, if you didn't know, and I desperately want another one. I think I am too scared to get a tattoo about a specific book, because if the last 2 years have taught me anything, it's never love a book completely openly, because you never know when an author or book will turn out to be super problematic and you just didn't know. And yeah, like, no, but I would like a tattoo that is bookish. So I'd like a tattoo that's like inspired by the kind of books that I enjoy. I have a friend who's just had like a big sword put up their arm, and oh, it's so cool. Maybe I will just get swords all over my body. Leg sword, arm sword, elbow sword. Oh, that would be painful. Which fictional place would you most like to visit? I think that as a child it would have been Narnia. And as an adult, I would like to go to the night circus. I think that would just be, I want that to be real, and I want to go there, and I want to see it all. What are your favourite ways to discover new authors? Goodreads lists are a big one for me. That you kind of are reliant on the cover, and sometimes covers do not reflect books in the best light. Close friends recommendations, especially friends outside the bookish community, I think that can be really interesting because you get stuff that isn't necessarily hyped at the moment. That can be very good. And also Twitter, though, I think is a really good way of discovering new authors. I will say to any authors who may be watching this, I have very rarely found a new beloved author because they emailed me out of the blue with a book that had nothing to do with anything I was interested in. How do you keep motivated? Reading a book that is not your typical genre. This is a bit specific for me. I very rarely read outside science fiction and fantasy. If I do, I usually have a really good reason to. So it'll either be that it's something I'm very interested in, it's for research, or there's a reason I think I would like it, or somebody who has recommended it to me saying, this isn't your normal thing, but I think you'll like it. I'd say it's about being discerning about what you like and remembering why you wanted to read the book, if it's something that you did want to read. And if it's something that someone recommended for you and they've actually not got it entirely right, they've completely misread you, you don't have to read it. You're not obligated to do so. DNFing is a thing. Hardback, softback, or ebook? Softback is a nice way of phrasing it that I do not use. It reminds me of, I don't know, it just made me think of a whale, like a humpback whale. Never mind. I'm a person who I genuinely don't care what format a book comes in, really. I'd say if I'm buying a book for myself, I'd prefer to buy it physically than in ebook, unless it's in a sale on ebook. That's a good reason. But purchased, I don't mind. Hardback, paperback, I'm all good. Review copy, I genuinely don't care. I don't have a preference. It's nice to be able to hold up and take photos of review copies, but I don't mind. If you could voice any audiobook, which book would it be? This is a really good question. I would love to narrate audiobooks. I think that sounds like the most fun ever. I have such a weird non-accent, though, that I don't know how that would go. I think I can't say a specific book because all the books that the audiobooks I love are because I love the audiobook narrator, but I would love to narrate anything where the main character is super sarcastic, because it would just be an opportunity to be super sarcastic. If you'd like me to narrate your audiobook, I'm available. If you were to make a piece of clothing or accessory out of books, what would it be? So while I would love to own that book dress, you all know the one I'm talking about, we've all been on Pinterest. If we're talking an actual practical item, I think it would be really cool to do like a hollowed out hardback that is like a clutch bag. I'm sure they exist, but I think that would be a cool thing to own multiples of. If you are a fan fiction fan, a fanfiction. Have you ever come across fanfiction that you've preferred to the book it is based on? I never really got into fanfiction. It wasn't a thing that was in my sphere of awareness as a young person. I feel like when a lot of other people were discovering fanfiction, I read a bit of it now, and I'd say the majority of what I read is Harry Potter fanfiction. And yes, I do prefer that to the books because I know that it's not written by J.K. Rowling, and you get good Malfoy stuff, and yeah, that's what I like to read. But if you have fanfiction recommendations, I'm always here for them because I would like to read more fanfiction, mainly because my friends read it and I feel left out. Have you ever had a story idea and wished someone would just write a bloody book of it? Yes, but the person is me. I wish I would finish the book that I have started writing. What genre of books is the sexiest? Girls with Swords. I know that's not really a genre, it's like swords and sorcery, but Girls with Swords is a genre that I choose to believe in, and it is the sexiest genre. Which fictional universe has the best food? Bringing back the Night Circus again, because I have a sweet tooth and I would like to live on toffee apples forever. All of the studio, I'm gonna say it wrong, Ghibli films, which is technically a fictional kind of universe. The food always looks really good in those, if we're moving away from books. I'm hungry now. Next section of questions. We are at question 19 for those keeping track. Hypothetical scenarios, a lot of which came from my Facebook. At various moments throughout your life, you will, without warning, stand up and proclaim randomly selected quotes from a book. You get to pick the book. What do you choose? I think I would pick Gideon the Ninth because I like the option of it either being really dark descriptive stuff about terrifying nightmare creatures or kind of mouthy lesbian. That I feel like that would kind of cover most scenarios in my life. If you could resurrect one dead character from any book/series, who and why? I feel like anything I go into will end up being a spoiler. I pick all the dogs from every Robin Hobb book where the dog dies, where it's very sad. I resurrect all the dead dogs. Who would win in a fight between Adorabelle Deerheart and Serafina Pekkala? I did have to double check that I knew who Serafina Pekkala was because I am not a huge Philip Pullman fan, but bold of you to assume that these two would fight and that they wouldn't just walk off into the sunset. What's the word I'm looking for? Giving up on all men forever. And I'm not saying they're fighting because of men, but I feel like they would just get on, you know? You're about to enter a cage match. Your only weapon is a book. What book do you choose? The Bible, but a kind of Bible where I've hollowed it out and filled it full of knives. You can add one random character from any book to the Fellowship in Lord of the Rings. Which character and why? Just like any woman. But let's say Rin from the Poppy War, because I think she would just enter this and be completely chaotic and just literally like fly the ring to Mordor, drop it in, fly away, punch Sauron in the face, and just live her best life. And she would not have put up with any of Boromir's bullshit. You can make any book character come to life, but you have to share a small flat with them forever. Which character do you pick? Can I opt out and be alone forever? I'm an introvert. Okay, so let's pick a character who's as likely to want to be alone on the opposite side of the flat as I am. I think I would pick, partly because I'm reading it at the moment, I would pick Elise from The Rainwilds by Robin Hobb, because she's like scholarly and we could talk about dragons. I feel like she would be a good time, but also respect space. Would you rather meet your favourite characters over tea or swap places with them in their world? I would rather meet them. They are main characters in fantasy or science fiction. That means that they are equipped to deal with catastrophes and crises that I am not. I would meet them, I would give them hugs and tea, and then send them back on their way. Like, imagine me trying to save the world. I would probably like, trip on a rock and fall off a cliff, and just everything would go wrong. Jeez. If you could be any character from a science fiction and fantasy novel, any age category, who would you be and why? Are we talking like aspirational or realistic? Because aspirationally, I would like to be like Vasya from Winter Night Trilogy. I can remember the names of my books. Just like riding a horse, rescuing people, being amazing, smashing the gender roles of the world I am in. Yes, aspirationally I am Vasya. In reality, I am every single elderly fantasy librarian who like gives the main character a book and then yells at them when they tear a spell out of it. If you could time travel, would you go to the past or to the future? This is a stupid question. I would go to the future because the past is bad and I'm queer. The only reason I would go to the past is the clothes, and I'm just going to assume that in the future we have like a revival of like wonderfully ethically made natural fibre clothes. What class or profession would you be if transported to a generic fantasy realm, and why would it be a bard? I have absolutely no idea what you mean. If you could be the personal bard for any character, who would it be and why? Every single one of them, all the time, everyone who doesn't already have a bard, I'll be your bard. But I have already written a song for Sorrow from State of Sorrow by Melinda Salisbury, so let's go with that. Why is YA important to you as a genre? I got a few very specific YA-based questions, and while I do read quite a bit of YA, it's really interesting, and I talked about it in a recent vlog, but I would say I probably read more adult fantasy and science fiction than I do YA at this point. I still read YA, there's heaps of it on the shelves, but I don't typically buy it for myself at the moment. But that's complicated because of so much stuff that's published in the UK as adult that would be YA in the States. That being said, I think YA is really important, specifically to me, because I think YA is moving ahead of adult genre fiction in terms of representation. I'm talking specifically about YA fantasy, but I think that comes from the fact that YA contemporary is doing the same thing. Yeah, that representation isn't necessarily there in other genres yet. Again, complicated, what's it being published as, but I think people who think YA is still The Hunger Games and so such are missing out on a lot of good stuff that they would probably enjoy. Okay, then I had a bunch of questions that were like favourite/least favourite, so I'm going to do those. Favourite bookish topic to argue with Katie, my wife, about. Favourite that you vehemently agree on. So the thing that we argue most about is probably the merits of straight or straight-passing characters. I don't mind a hetero relationship, Katie is less fond. And favourite thing that we agree on, that audiobooks are great, and that quite often an audiobook will be better than just reading the physical book, especially if it's a bloomin' complicated fantasy. What's the best dog character you've read? I think at the moment I would have to say it's Jump from Tamora Pierce's the Kell books. I love Jump with all of my being. I nearly bought a t-shirt with him on, but I'd have to have it shipped from America and that would be expensive. But I do love him. What's your least favourite trope? Have you ever seen it done well? I think my least favourite trope is probably, it's okay that that character was evil in book 1, because it turns out that they were gay the whole time. I've yet to see it done impeccably well. I don't know if it can be, because it's kind of inherently flawed as a concept, but I will. It's too much of a spoiler to talk about it in too much detail, but I will just waft this across the screen and say that the second one has it done reasonably okay. Favourite sentient non-human character in a book? Sidra from Closed and Common Orbit by Becky Chambers has my heart so much. Which book would you remove from existence if you could? This is very specific and not one that anyone will have heard of, but if I could get the time I spent reading The Ember Blade back, or The Blade's Ember, I can't even remember what it was called. I'll put the cover up. But if I could have that time back, and also the years it took off me in terms of just mental strain. Anyway, favourite fantasy creature that isn't a dragon? A Bandabear from the Edge Chronicles, because Bandabears are the best. Favourite piece of cover art? I have 2. I can't move too much because my microphone is there. I love the cover for Wild Beauty by Anna-Marie McLemore. I think it's absolutely stunning, and something about the colours, it sets off the serotonin in my brain. But also I think that the cover for Priory of the Orange Tree is just fantastic, and a good cover if you like dragons. What's your favourite opening line to a book? It is actually, I think, probably the most compelling opening line is from City of Lies by Sam Hawke, and it's known for its first line is, "I was 7 years old the first time my uncle poisoned me." I just think it's a really good start to a book. Then I had a bunch of questions that were book recommendation questions, which is one of my favourite things I'd like to do. It's partly why I started this channel, is I like telling people what books they ought to read. As I say, always plagued with complete doubt. If people hate them, what if they then hate me? But this is a good exercise in stopping thinking that. What YA novel or novels would you recommend to people who don't generally read YA? So as I say, this is complicated. If you read science fiction and fantasy in the UK, you potentially have been reading more YA than you think you have been because of that discrepancy in what gets published as what. If you are one of my, again, I can't remember who asked these questions, but if you are one of my friends asking, I think you will enjoy pretty much everything that Anna-Marie McLemore has written, because it's very queer and lovely and beautifully written, and yeah, let me poke Anna-Marie McLemore your way. Not literally. I'm sure they would not enjoy that. If you're wanting to more embrace that kind of YA tropey kind of writing, maybe Girls of Paper and Fire would be another good option. This one was also kind of a hypothetical scenario. Help, my dinner party is falling apart and my guests are one glass of wine away from starting a Merlot-infused fist fight. Which one book can I grab from your shelves as a talking point to rescue this whole sorry affair? I can't grab it. But The Starlight Barking by Dodie Smith is probably the most confusing talking point ever, because everyone knows the vague story of 101 Dalmatians. So when you throw that sequel at them as like a, not literally, but as a, hey, Dalmatians, but also magical powers in space, what is the gayest book you would recommend? I have two. I think Dark and Deepest Red, again by Anna Marie McLemore, very, very good, and Cinderella is Dead, which I've reviewed very recently, is very, very gay and enjoyable. I think those are the ones that I'd say that's like the focal point of the book. A lot of the other stuff I read is kind of like tangentially gay, so like Gideon the Ninth would be another good option. Yeah, that'll do you. That covers a lot of bases. Have you read many movie novelizations, and if so, which, if any, are any good? I don't think I have. I don't think I've ever read a movie novelization. Neverwhere is maybe the closest that I've got to reading one, and I enjoyed Neverwhere. Does that count? What book makes you look the most intelligent when you read it on a train? Asking for a friend. Anything where it's in ancient Greek. Just a really big ancient Greek title, and where, yeah, that. I don't know if you have time to learn ancient Greek, but that would be what I would go with. Popular or less known older YA that you still want to read? Thinking about it, I can't think of any. I read most of the kind of like the big YA stuff that gets talked about, like Grisha Trilogy and stuff, when I first started blogging, when I was basically only reading YA. And there's nothing that I'm like desperate. There's like a few bits here and there that if I found them in a charity shop, I would buy them, but nothing springs to mind. I think I would like to read the rest of the Tortle books, the Tamara Pierce ones. Would be good to get done. I would like to own them all as well. What is a book or series you love but don't get to talk about enough on your channel? I pretty much talk about all the stuff I love, like, too much. I only talk about kind of 4 books. I think I don't talk about Nevernight, despite the fact that I really enjoy it as a series, because I can see how it's problematic. I know it's complicated to recommend. It's like a bit of a love or hate it book, and I don't want to be one of those people who's like obsessively fanatic about it, and I'm not one of those, but also I don't hate it. I enjoy it quite a bit because it's girls with swords and gay. What book would you make mandatory reading in schools if you had the power? Mandatory reading, unbearably painful, but I would really like if somebody had pushed my way, if it had existed when I was in school, Sophie Hagen's Happy Fat, and had everyone in the school read it and just realise how damaging all of the rhetoric about weight loss and everything was, because I think that would have probably changed my perception of myself quite a bit when I was a teenager. I then had a few questions about film adaptations. What book would you most want to see turned into a film, assuming it was a good adaptation? I would really like to see Bloody Rose by Nicholas Eames. I think that could be a really cool film. That would mean making Kings of the Wild, but I think that would be fine. I want that. There are also ones that are vaguely in the works, so it's not really like a wish list thing, but I really hope the Jade City adaptation is good. Equally, David Bad, like, there's so much potential, but also I have no hope for adaptations anymore. Which movie adaptation of a book, presumably done badly, would you like to see redone, but good? I am trying to get excited about the Disney Percy Jackson remake, but also it's Disney, so are they going to include all the stuff that is good about that series? I don't know. Another question. The Artemis Fowl movie. Why? Capitalism. Then the last section is just other. Should I stop procrastinating and go back to writing my dissertation? No. Continue to binge watch my videos. Is a dissertation a book? If yes, how does one go about obtaining a ghostwriter? Is there a WikiHow for summoning ghosts? Because I feel like you could get some good ones. Why do birds? I can only assume this person got stuck halfway through writing a question and what they actually wanted to write. Why do birds suddenly appear when I cover myself in birdseed? If I was a book, what book would I be? The person who wrote this, I do remember the person who wrote this. I don't know, but it would be the kind of book that would break records about how long it stayed in the bestseller list, because it would be so good, because you are so good. A lot of people also just asked butts, because that's what my Facebook is like. Thank you to all the people who asked that. yes buts. Thank you so much to everyone who asked questions. I hope I answered them in a reasonably coherent way. I think I've probably been talking for too long, but this was really good to do, and hopefully we can do one again at the next kind of follower milestones. Pick one of these questions and comment below with your answer. I would love to know what your thoughts are on some of these topics and questions. You can also follow me on all of my social media. That's in the description as well. Twitter is the best place to find me. I have found it's the one social media platform I really keep up with. You can also subscribe. It makes me feel loved and appreciated. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one. There's gonna be some bloopers now. I'm gonna try and remember that I'm wearing a microphone and not wiggle my boobs too much. How do you keep motivated reading a book that is not your typical genre? But if you have fan program, I'm losing my voice again. If you're willing to embrace the YA-ness of it all, that's not how I want to say that.